Hey guys. So after a couple of days of being all around the country, it is now time for me to come back and talk to you a bit more about Warhammer. Might be a bit of a short one today. Not too sure. Every time I say that, I end up doing like a 25-minute video. So go figure. Today, I wanted to go over a few plans I've got going forward. Also, if you want to help the channel out, feel free to subscribe or become a member or go to Patreon or all the links are below. And the Discord on our YouTube channel is free. You don't need to pay to get in, which is why I suggest you do use it. Because we're one of the only YouTube channels that I think does that. We don't charge you to get into the Discord to get the help and support that you need in your hobby, your personal life, whatever you need to do. So it's all there, all free. My rule of thumb, and I get asked this all the time, is how much you want me to give you. I don't mind. But what I would say is, if you can afford to give me it 10 times, give me a tenth of that. Right? So if you can afford to give me a tenner, give me a tenth of that. Essentially. 10%. So yeah, that's what when I give money to other people, that's what I do when I'm doing Patreon and stuff. If I can afford to give you £50, I'll give you a fiver, because I've had a good month, that sort of a thing. Anyway, so I want to talk today about quitting the hobby, about walking away, and some of the instances that I've had working in stores where I've seen it happen. I've either seen it overtly happen, where someone says to me, I've had enough, or I've seen it happen in more of a subtle way, where you can just see the light of the hobby dying in somebody. One of the things I can't forgive at Games Workshop and at hobby stores in general is when staff are complicit in this. And this happens a lot, and I'm sure when, I hear what you guys have to say, that this also happens a lot too with you. My original manager at Games Workshop, in the store I worked in, not the store that I ran, was notorious for running people out of the hobby before they've even started. This is a guy, he had a weirdly obscene talent for sniffing out money. He could really, really sniff out some money. Like, he knew, he had a sixth sense that when a customer came in, they were ready to spend and spend big. Especially if they were a new customer. That was the really talented thing about it. He didn't have to know these people. But, there was one time when me and the other staff member were saying, look, because we have KPIs at Games Workshop, and if you don't know what KPIs are, they are key performance indicators, and that basically means if you're selling these things, it means your store is growing and it's getting more recruitment through the door, get new customers, which is a load of bollocks really, because I knew a lot of people who bought the starter box sets because they like the models that are in them and they've been in the hobby for years, so they're not recruiting new customers, but it's a false thing. But anyway, that's what Games Workshop would do. As far as I know, they still do it now. So, me and the other staffer would say, look, if somebody wants to come in and do Tau, it's hard to push Dark Vengeance on them, because at the time we were on 7th edition. It's hard to push Dark Vengeance on them and say, look, get this instead, when, we've got things they actually want, if they actually want to play Tau or things like that. And the manager said, well, watch me when I do it. I bet you I can get like a recruitment going straight away, and I'll make them want the Dark Vengeance. Okay, yeah, fair enough. I'm sitting down painting the store army, and I'm thinking it'll be just like him to get the look now, because he never does any work, and he never actually recruits anybody. Watch him get the look now. Watch the person come in and literally give him a sale. And that's exactly what happened. A young couple came in wanting to drop £500, and they both wanted to get into the hobby, and they both wanted the Dark Vengeance box set. He didn't have to sell it to them at all. They just walked in, they wanted that box set. They got one each, and a load of paints, and blah, blah, blah. And he came over all smug afterwards. And I just looked at him like, dude, if you can't tell, that wasn't natural. That never normal. When have you ever seen that happen to one of us, where they come in and they say, what happened to you there? The fish has jumped into the boat and whacked itself with the oar, and then put itself in the basket. That's what just happened there. So, yeah, don't use that as a fucking example, right? Do it again. If you can do it every time, do it again. And he just, we didn't get along, put it that way. And the other staffer was like, yeah, to be fair, the other staffer was really, really, really quiet. He was always quiet, and he was always a really nice lad. But even he was just nodding along, going, yeah, I have to tell you, man, that doesn't happen. It just doesn't. He's like, well, it just sort of happened. Yeah, we know it just, You mean no? But we've been here for 6 months, and not once has somebody come in and said, I want to buy these several things that are really good for your KPIs, please. You know, it just doesn't happen. You got to work at it, right? Just because you got the. This is the thing, and it happens quite a lot. And whenever I talk to people, they seem to think that this is a wrong thing. If you say something that you know is true, and like everybody else in the room knows it's true, and then the exact opposite happens, then that doesn't prove anything. That just proves that, you know, that life just shit on you in that moment and said, look, you know, here's the exception to the rule. Okay, fine, but the rule's still there, right? We have 99 instances of this thing happening and one time where this thing happened. That doesn't mean the one time is better than 99 times, essentially. So the really powerful thing about that moment is that it let that manager coast on his laurels, and I really hate it when life does that. You know, where it just gives somebody, it doesn't just give them lemons, it gives them pure lemonade and ice and a slice of lemon, and a really nice glass that is also frosted. You know what I mean? Like it's just, he didn't need that at that time. He needed a come down moment to see how hard it was, and to climb down from pushing everybody else out the store who wasn't interested in buying Dark Vengeance at that time. That's not what happened, unfortunately. The exact opposite happened, which and I was cursing the universe or whatever. I was like, for God's sake, like, we need a break here. This is getting ridiculous. He didn't need more ammunition to go after us. You know, the people who are supporting and making him very, very a lot of money through this store because we're really good staffers. We didn't need this. And his behaviour from then on in only got worse. I've said before about the kid who came in, the little girl who came in, and he made her cry because he said her Space Marines were substandard. You know, great, thank you. There was a kid who came in and he started playing Space Wolves, and my manager at the time really loved Space Wolves. Like, he really, really, really loved Space Wolves. And so he said, look, you know, I'll handle this one. So he goes over there and he starts talking at him about Space Wolves and how cool they are. And he tells him about all the armies that he has and all the things that he does and all the things that, you know, he finds interesting. Bear in mind, for the past couple of months, he's grilled into me that this is what you don't do. And he was right. You're not supposed to go over to a customer and tell them about your hobby experience. If they ask, give them a nice, polite, short answer and then move on. It's all about what they want and what they want to do and what they want to explore, and they want somebody to talk to about their hobby. It's not about you. And he did exactly the opposite of that and went over and just said how amazing his Space Wolf army was. He goes upstairs, brings it down, and bear in mind, this Games Workshop manager thinks he's doing this kid a solid, right? He's bringing down a full Space Wolf army for him to have a look at, right? Little does he see that this kid is looking at this stuff, which is really high, painted to a really high standard, and he's looking at his own models going, what am I doing? You can always sense he's like, I'm never going to get to this level, so why am I bothering, right? Why am I bothering at all? At this stage, there's nothing I can do. Like, this is how the interaction is going. That'd be really rude of me to go over there and start, you know, getting on the interaction. So I just stood back. I caught the look of the other staffer, who was like, you know, just looking at me at the corner of his eye going, my God, what is he doing? Anyway, this kid walks out, and I don't see this kid again. So for all I know, I left a couple of weeks later, so I went to run my own store. So I don't know whether he ever came back, but turns out, do you think my manager actually painted those models? No, they were a commission job. So not only does he chase somebody out the hobby by bragging for a full, 45 minutes, but he does it with models that he hasn't even painted. That is a real occasion of when staff members in a hobby store can turn off people from the hobby and ruin it for them. And I'm fully aware, quite a lot of people working for Games Workshop are just as broken as the people who buy the models, right? We've all got social cues that we miss. We've all got things that we don't pick up on. But the fact that, being able to have the moral bankruptcy to go and pass off somebody else's work as your own is bad enough. But then doing it to lord it over somebody who's just starting in the hobby is another thing entirely. One other occasion that we lost a few members from the store was we had a big summer campaign in 7th edition where essentially we were all fighting over this world that was really, really cool. And I'd set this up when my manager was on holiday for 2 weeks. I'd written something really quick, like a nice campaign for everyone to get involved in. And essentially, they were meant to get a start collecting box set and paint it up. And then they were meant to get as many box sets as they wanted, right? And build a completely new character with their own lore, their own background, their own stats, even like they're literally their own data slate, right? And all of it would be approved by the staff because we don't want anything too overpowered, and those guys would battle it out on the tabletop, right? So manager comes back a few days early, to the chagrin of everybody in the store, and he sees this there and he quashes it. He says, "No, this is ridiculous. We don't do this kind of thing in the store, Bear in mind, we've just made him like £800-900 in sales just from that in the 1 week, But that doesn't, we don't do this kind of thing in the store. It's ridiculous, It's not your responsibility to do this sort of a thing. Blah 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 blah. Okay, fine, cool. I said, well, people are going to turn up on the day and they will want to play games. He goes, well, they can play games then. I'll do. He said, I'll do an event for them. Don't worry. Okay, fine, cool. So I walk out deflated, like thinking, I went into that meeting thinking I was going to get sacked, to be honest with you, for doing the campaign. Because you're not meant to do campaigns. But I just thought, he's gone, and we can make some money, and we can, make people enjoy the hobby a little bit. So anyway, he comes downstairs, and we're all just standing around, and blah, blah, and the day comes of the campaign, and he's not told me anything, what he's going to do. And by this time, I've gone on the WhatsApp group and I've told everybody what happened. And they were expecting it. As soon as he came back early, he's a known entity, this guy. They were like, oh, for fuck's sake, here we go. Game over. Fun ruined. I'm not doing that anymore. And he said, no, we're going to do the battle of the campaign. And everyone's flabbergasted. Okay, cool. Yeah, cool. And a lot of them are saying, yeah, can we use those rules that we wrote and got approved? No. Okay, cool, right. So we're using the start collecting box sets. Yes. He said, you're all going to play me. And I was thinking, one after the other? Well, that's pretty cool. It's like a round robin thing. No, you misunderstand. I'm going to be on one side of the table, and all of you are going to be on the other side of the table. And we're going to have a big game. I thought, oh, okay, that sounds cool. At least they're going to have a bit of fun, with the models that they got and painted. Manager then proceeds to go upstairs and come down with 8 Imperial Knights. And just line them up on one end of the table and just say, right, here we go. Right, you guys are all renegades, even though like there's some Space Marine and Guard and whatever there. No, you guys are all renegades, and you guys are all fighting me. And so you got Eldar in there, Tau. It makes no sense, right? Eldar, Tau, Slaaneshi demons, all fighting Imperial Knights. Bear in mind, these guys, there are now 8 to 9 maybe players who have start collecting box sets. So that's a squad, a HQ, and a small vehicle, right? So each of those guys has that, essentially. And of course they get annihilated, and they just have no fun whatsoever. And they finish, and most of them leave. And that was the day we lost 5 or 6 people from the store. Like, they just never came back. And I'd known them for quite a while as well. I'm still on WhatsApp with some of them. And they walk out the store, that was it. They were like, no, I'm going to the local game store now. I'm not doing this anymore. The terrain isn't worth it, because we had really good terrain. He said the terrain isn't worth it. A lot of them were just like, yeah, we've had enough. It's not worth it. We're going to go here, and that's it. Only for the manager to walk over to me and the staffer, who are by the till, sorting stuff out, and he comes over with a really smug grin on his face and goes, well, that lasted longer than I thought it would. And I just looked at him like, are you serious? Now, remember when I started talking about the old school mentality of how Games Workshop used to be really, really bad in the mid-noughties to late, to the early 10s, right? Yeah, well, this guy was his golden age, and he's still there now. As far as I know, he's still the manager of that store now. And his golden age was then. That was his big thing. And he's always worked for Games Workshop. He's never worked for anybody else, right? This is the kind of guy we're dealing with. He told me he went to Oxford. Right? He went to Oxford University. Because I went to Durham University, which is a very good university. And 1 second, yeah. So he went to Oxford, and he kept going on about the fact that he went to Oxford and he did this and did that, and he only brought it up when somebody asked me, oh, where did you study? I said Durham, and he said, oh, what did you study? Classics. And the guy knew, like, he came to the store, he said, oh my god, that's like, isn't that the top, one of the top in Europe for classics? I said, yes, it is. Thank you. It's yeah, I really enjoyed my time there. And then he goes, well, I went to Oxford, comes in and like tries to, and only for me to find out when I became a manager, he didn't go to Oxford. He went to Oxford Brookes, which is a much smaller regional university rather than a national, like Oxford, for fuck's sake. You know what I mean? So this the kind of guy we're dealing with here is somebody who is into self-aggrandizement and is into putting other people down. I once said to the other staffer in the store, hey, I sent a story into Black Library a while ago, and it didn't get any traction. I don't think they wanted to go that way with the character. Cause I think I retold an Arthurian legend, but using a Space Marine. I think I think they didn't really want to do that. But yeah, I kind of knew they didn't want to, but I sent it in anyway just to see what they would say. And it just says maybe it just wasn't good enough. And he would do that all the time. He would do shit like that all the time. To me, to the other staffer, to customers. He would do it all of the time. Where he would literally take what you like and just break it down into just being shit and not being worth the paper it's written on, sort of thing, And thing is, he wouldn't even get he was doing it. And sometimes he literally thought he was doing you a favour by coming over to you and ruining your hobby experience. He thought he was doing you a favour, And his whole shebang was, you can't stand the heat, get out the kitchen. It was just like, there are people in life. Do you know those people you see with dating profiles where they say things like, if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best, and all that bullshit. Or some people have said I've got an attitude problem, blah blah blah. But it's just me being a free spirit. No, you're a cunt. Because there's one common denominator there, isn't there? Multiple people say you've got an attitude problem. There's one common denominator there. It's you. It's not if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. You're a cunt. And that's the long and short of that, right? There's no excuse. There's nothing. You're literally a see you next Tuesday. That's exactly what you are. And this guy didn't get it. He didn't get it. I always wanted to walk home on my own, just so I can listen to some music. Because do you know what the job was really good for? I would get so enthused about Warhammer, and I'd go home thinking about it, thinking, oh my god, when payday comes, I really want to get this model and that model, and I want to, oh yeah. And I put on some trashy, Warhammer metal, like Disturbed or something, and turn it up and like really listen to it and like get into like my start going through my head of what it would look like when it's on the tabletop and what kind of characters I wanted to build and things like that. And I'll do that almost every night I went home when I didn't think in the summer anyway, when it wasn't dark. And he would always make a point whenever he could of walking me home. Essentially, not home to my house, but like the train station was on the way. Do you know what I mean? But like there was a bit of the train station where you need to go straight forward to go to the train station and left to go to my house, right? He would always pick up the conversation when we got to that point and would carry on walking to the train station, so I couldn't just stop and leave. You know what I mean? So I'd literally had to walk him to the train station after. It was just a really weird situation, This is the kind of guy when bike people would cycle on the pavement, he would stand in front of them and say, "You're not supposed to do that here. You're supposed to do it on the road." He's right, but there's ways and means of doing it. You don't just stand in front of the guy trying to cause an accident, right? Don't try and dram your umbrella into people's wheels when they're going past because they're not supposed to be on the pavement. Shit like that, yeah? When we were on the way back from one of the retail workshops, me and another staffer were talking about, the hobby, blah, blah, blah. And he looked like he was just completely mortified that we were discussing it in public. Just little things that can really turn people off doing the hobby altogether. One of the main reasons why I left the hobby for so long after I quit Games Workshop is because I just couldn't face it. I couldn't face being reminded about some of the shitty things that I put up with when I was there. And that it's a shame. But if it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody at Games Workshop and in any friendly local game store. It really can. And that's why I don't forgive when I see it happening. These days, I go out of my way to walk over to people and say, hey, you know, shut the fuck up. You know, like, I just don't want to put up with it. Like, my hobby time's precious to me. So if I'm there playing a game and you're standing on the opposite table farting all the time, I'm going to tell you to close your fucking ass. Close your mouth and your fat ass. Do both of those things right now, please. I just can't be doing with it. Like, that was an example from the friendly local game store that's near me, and I don't like going into the stories like that because they come across as very, as I said before, self-aggrandizing, and I don't like to do that. I don't like to be like, I hate chest pounding. It really winds me up. I don't like it. But if you're ruining shit for other people, stop that. Stop that, because that is going to suffocate and kill the hobby quicker than anything else. You know, toxic winners and losers, yeah, we've been through all that before on this channel. But actively driving people away from the hobby is not something I can forgive or forget, and I will never forget that manager, put it that way. And I've seen his archetype more than once, which is a real shame. A real shame. There are tons of people out there who are at really good hobby stores, and you know what? Most of the people who are in my comments tend to talk about really positive experiences that they've had with guys running hobby stores, and a lot of them tend to be normal hobby stores rather than Games Workshops. But if you've got a manager like that, then go to bat for him. You know, support them, make sure that they're getting what they need in terms of the financial and things like that. But if you see behaviour that isn't that, just because they're the manager, if they kick you out, fair enough, but make your voice heard. Say, I don't think that's appropriate. I'm sorry. I don't think that's appropriate. Like, the dad who came in of that little girl who got told this Space Marines were substandard did the right thing. He came in and shouted at us, essentially, and said, no, I'm never coming back to the store ever again. You know? And, of course, this is how this manager would go. This is why it's quite hard to not be bitter sometimes. Because he wasn't even there for that. He avoided that. And he would do it all the time. He would get away with things all of the time. And when I would go to Games Workshop itself and I would talk to the guys there, anybody who knew him was like, oh yeah, he's a handful, but his store is really well run, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Because we're doing it. Yeah. You know? And, you know, when I went to be a manager, I had a really cool experience for a while until, you know, you were being set up for failure and then being asked why you almost succeeded. You were set up to get a 3 out of 10. Somehow you got a 5 out of 10 when they wanted a 7. It's like, okay, well, you know, and it never seemed to. The really shitty thing is, you know, when they say nice guys finish last, as Games Workshop managers, that's completely true. Completely true. The dickhead managers were the ones who were at the big stores and succeeding and doing really well, because they would ruthlessly sack people. They would get you in, they'd burn you out, you'd leave, they'd replace you, and they'd do that all the time. They would channel your love of the hobby into making their store better, burn you out, and get rid of you when you couldn't do it anymore. I was lucky because a manager's job came up just as I was about to burn out. Just when I was about to say, shove this job up your ass, I'm going home. Like that was when I got the manager's job, and then eventually, when I burnt out on that job as well, I was like, okay, I'm done. Like, I've done the Games Workshop thing, off I go into the sunset. So that is people quitting the hobby, or when I've seen it happen, or I've seen people leaving the hobby through the actions of people who are in a position of power. What do you think? Have you had this happen in your hobby careers? Have you seen it happen? Have you done it to people before and regretted it afterwards? Let me know in the comments below. Really can't wait to do some more hobby store stories, and also we're going to be doing Space Wolves. That should be tomorrow at some point, either tomorrow or Wednesday. Space Wolves will be out, and then we'll be doing our next big showcase towards the end of the week. So, and of course some more hobby stories for the end of the week as well. So, thank you very much for watching. Speak to you next time. Have a good one.